Hi, I'm Pamela with Sewing Queen. Today we're going to make a skirt with no pattern. All you need is a hip measurement and a measurement for the length of the skirt that you would like. Beautiful fabric that I picked today, nice and flowy, just an elastic waist skirt, and I'm very excited, so let's get started. Okay, so for our skirt, very simple skirt. It's just an elastic waist skirt. What you'll want to determine is the measurements for your fabric. What you'll do is take your hip measurement, add 10 to 15 inches to your hip measurement, cut that as the width, and then figure out the length that you want. In this case, I'm going to make this skirt 32-inch from waist to right below my knee, ends up being 32 inches. And my waist measurement, because this is just a straight rectangle piece of fabric, is 10 inches larger than my hip line. You'll add put both pieces together and sew down this center back seam. I like using 1/2 inch width for my seam allowance. A flowy fabric, very soft and flowy, is best for this kind of a skirt. Now my seam here, I'm going to use the serger and serge it for unraveling. I'll be right back. Now I have my edge nice and serged, so there'll be no unraveling. We're ready to do our waist. So I'm going to section off this waist. The center seam being the back seam. Going to put a pin in the center seam, and then over here to where the sides are, it's going to go, put a pin there. Lay this to the side. I'll take my piece of elastic, which measures my waist, and I'm going to sew it together durably. And I'm going to section the elastic, so the seam being the back, a pin right there for the front, mark with pins where my sides will be. Now that this is quartered off, I'm going to mark it where my pins are. On the inside of the fabric. So we've quartered off our fabric to know the correct placement of the elastic. Now that I've gone that far, I'm actually going to stretch my elastic and find where the center would be for there, in between each pin. Let's go to this side now. I'm going to stretch the elastic, giving us the placement of fabric. See how I used my pressure foot as a third hand? It's nice when you have a knee control to lift up your pressure foot. So now the elastic is pinned evenly around. Starting anywhere on the skirt, we're going to sew that elastic on. So I'm going to get it straight. With my needle in my fabric now, I can pull on the fabric here, pull the elastic, making the fabric flat with the elastic. When you go to pull, always make sure your needle is in the fabric. Stretching the elastic to fit the fabric all the way around. Getting to the edge here. And there we are, sewing the elastic all the way around. Now you're going to take your serger and serge the edge all the way around this waistband. Be right back. So now I have just stretched my fabric and serged my edge of the elastic. Now we'll take it, fold the elastic inward, and you're going to stitch on top of that by pulling the fabric a little tautly all the way around, keeping my needle in the before I go to stretch, straightening my fabric out. This is a non-pattern way of making a skirt. No pattern needed. Almost to the end here. Trim my threads. Turn my skirt. Now, here's your beautiful elastic waist skirt. Now all we need to do is the hem. So I'm going to come down here to the bottom of the hem, and always where there is a seam, which is in our center back of this skirt, is where I'll start. I'm going to use a rolled hem foot. Very easy to use. When you're using that, you just with your thumb and pointer will slightly turn that fabric, slip it into the turning point of the foot, and go ahead and get started. Of course, when you come to a seam, it's always a good idea for thickness sake to trim a little bit of that off. You could put any kind of hem you wish on the bottom of the skirt, but because it's such a nice flowy skirt, I feel like a rolled edge is just fine. Coming to the end here, I'm going to trim my previous stitches. Get about a foot away from where we started, lift up the foot with the needle in, and finish it off. So now our skirt has a beautiful hem and an elastic waist.